One.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Stopping the Violence, Stopping the Crime. We've been airing, having this webinar.
You froze up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think he got cut off. Let's wait for him to come back. Victor Madden, go ahead. I think she has some technical troubles there.
Hello, we're good, BJ?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Again, greetings, everyone. Welcome to Stopping the Violence of Crime. Well, as you know, this webinar happens every Wednesday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we welcome you. We thank you so much for coming on and not only just being here, but sharing your, asking your questions and sharing your comments. As I was saying earlier, this was a vision and a clarion call from Dr. Hachika Moon. So we appreciate her as she has made so many sacrifices over the years. Um, Fortunately or unfortunately, your fearless leader, Dr. Zachary Oliver, he will maybe be a little late. Hopefully, he will be able to go on because, as some of you might know, that he is out of the country. I'm not going to take up too much of your time because we have such a great speaker on today. I'm excited about him going on. Thank you so much, Mr. Brooks, for coming on and agreeing to share your time with us and to give us the information to compel us to do what we can while we can. I'm going to read a little bit of his bio. Like I said, I'm not going to take up too much time because I want him to be able to come on and move forward, and we will have as much time with him as we possibly can, because from his presentation, I'm sure that you will have questions and comments. Okay, so again, I welcome you. Alvin Brooks is a distinguished figure whose career has left an indelible mark on Kansas City political, civic, and business landscape. Elected as the 6th District at-large councilman in 1999 and reelected in 2003. Brooks quickly rose to prominence, serving as mayor pro tem under Mayor Kay Barnes. His leadership extended to chair to excuse me. His leadership extended to chairing several city council committees. Brooks' influence in these roles has helped shape the policies and safety of Kansas City, ensuring a legacy of community focused governance. So, how many of you know we need that? Beyond his political achievements, Brooks' dedicated to social justice and community activism is unparalleled. In 1968, shortly after the city's riots, Brooks was appointed the first Black director in Kansas City government and established the Human Relation Department. In 1977, he founded the ACHOG Group Against Crime. And correct me, Mr. Brooks, if I'm not saying that correctly. A grassroots organization that has since become a cornerstone in Kansas City's efforts to combat violence and crime. Under his leadership, ACHOG has empowered citizens, fostered police community relations, and served as a model for civic engagement across the nation. Brooks worked with ACHOG was brought to the attention of President George H.W. Bush, and he appointed Brooks to a 3-year term on the National Drug Advisory Council. In 1990, Bush came to Kansas City to meet with Brooks and see the work ACHOG had been doing. Bush named Brooks one of America's, quote, 1,000 points of light, unquote, highlighting his relentless fight against crime and drugs. Brooks' educational background is as impressive as his career, with degrees in history, government, and sociology from the University of Missouri, Kansas City. His commitment to education is further evidenced by his role as a reserve teacher and visiting instructor at several local colleges. I'm going to stop your bio right there because, like I said, Mr. Brooks, I want you to have much time as humanly possible. And please prepare your ears, your mind, and your heart, because this will compel you. Have your questions ready because he has an answer. Mr. Brooks, please grace us.
In the beginning, God created heaven and earth and everything therein. The fish of the sea, the fowl of the air, the creatures that crawl, everything that lives. And then decided to make humankind. How? In the likeness and image of the Creator. So my brothers and sisters, wherever you are, whatever your religion, your color, your gender, your status in life, we are brothers and sisters whether you want to be or not. You don't have to love me. I don't have to love you. But I am your brother, and you're my sister and my brother, wherever you are. And so that's the foundation of which I live. I believe we're brothers and sisters, and I act like it, I talk like it, and I'm like it all the way. And so thank you so very much, Brother VJ, for inviting me to this great session, because when you talk about crime, you got to talk about America. We're one of the most violent nations in the world without ever having a war on these grounds since the Civil War. In 1977, there were 10 women were killed in a short period of time from March to June. And they were ladies of the evening. We know them as prostitutes. And many of you may remember in New Jersey, New York, there was a fellow called the Son of Sam who was killing prostitutes. And the African-American community here in Kansas City thought, well, it was either police killing them or John's killing them. And so I had left the police department. The sister didn't mention that I'm a former policeman here in Kansas City, detective, and then also a police commissioner. And I had left the police department in 1964, but still had ties. And one of my proteges was assigned to investigate these 10 homicides. One happened to be a lady of the lighter hue. And when Al Lomax, who was a sergeant, and it was certainly not protocol, but we went over, I went to his office, and we sat with the door closed and went over each of those 10 homicides. And we said, we won't say anything until we get through the 10. I said, Al, what do you think? He said, it's not a serial killer. What do you think? It's not a serial killer. Because each one of them had a different modus operandi. And that means that serial killers do the same thing in most cases, the same way. So I decided to take a look at the whole sequence of events of those deaths. My master's thesis was written in 1973. And as many of you know, if you did a thesis on undergraduate, or graduate, or PhD, or whatever the case might be, normally, unless you're in the science field, you don't expect to do anything but be in the library where you got it from, or in your home, brag about it, and that kind of thing. But it never gets used. And I said to my late wife, Carol, God bless her soul, I said, baby, I think this is the time that I can put my thesis to work, because that was a plan as a sociologist, to try to see group behavior, how it works. And so what I did, I called a meeting in Kansas City with the Sergeant Lomax. We'd gone over this. Well, unfortunately, the media picked it up. And that Wednesday night, the 3rd of November, 1977, everybody turned out. And when some folks get before a camera, they do their cameo appearance and they show out. So we got very little done that 30th of November meeting, 1977. But we called another meeting in 2 weeks, and the cameras weren't there, but fewer people. And finally, we got our start. And let me say it to you, my brothers and sisters. The only way in the cyber crime in urban America, the only way to do that is to bring together those forces of the criminal justice system and the community to do so. It's not going to work any other way. So I would urge you, as I share with you this prototype, if you have an idea in your community in America, when I say urban America, I mean where the poor people live, of all races and ethnicity, particularly Black and Hispanic and many poor people, white poor people, and they live there. If you're really interested in doing that, somebody's got to rise up and say, let's form an organization. Now, let me caution you. Let me suggest to you that it not be an elected official. Because if the prosecutor is a Democrat and the elected official is a Republican, you got a problem. And sometimes you don't know the relationship between those two before you ask them to be your original leader. And I'd caution you also, particularly in the African American community, and I know a lot about the African American community. I've been an African American for 93 years. I know a little bit about Black folks, just a little bit, enough to say to you, be cautious even if there's a minister who is your leader, because too often there's that situation, because Baptist church is probably the most ones in most communities, the Baptist church. Then you have AME, CME, Zion, you have Pentecostal. And one mistake that you don't want to make is to have someone who does not have a good relationship with some of those other folk, other than his particular denomination. And you heard the expression, some of my best friends are politicians, some of my best friends are ministers of the gospel. But I'm just telling you fact. So it's better if someone rises up from the community that's respected by those various entities, and more specifically, the community that they represent. Was it Hispanic, whether it's African American, or whether it's white, or a combination thereof. Kansas City has about 30% African American community of 500,000 people. And so it was not difficult. And when I use the word me and I'm not being ego. I'm just telling you what happened. So it wasn't difficult for me, because I knew those various entities to call that meeting on the 3rd of November, 1977. And so I think that if you want to really make a change, and my thesis was social action. Sometimes I can't remember myself, it's been so long. But the main thing was the role of intermediary groups, whether it's NAACP, the Urban League, SCLC, or community organization, ministerial, whatever the case might be. That group or groups can become the intermediary between the entities of the criminal justice system. So what did I do? I called together people from the prosecutor's office, the U.S. Attorney's office, the AFT, FBI, the police department, and more importantly, and political leaders and ministers, but more importantly, the people from the community. And that's what it was on that 3rd of November, 1977. But when the cameras left, you're left with just let me take that back. I didn't call those for the first meeting. The first meeting was just for those Black organizations and political leaders who represent the Black community. And then we decided who's going to be at the next meeting. And that's when we call all the entities of the court, even the court in back, the presiding judge of the circuit court, 16th Judicial Circuit, and the federal, someone from the federal bench. They were there at that. And let me suggest this. Try your best not to involve the media at your meetings until you get something what you want to present. Because what you say and what's written, you can't take back. It's out there. And so I would suggest that you very quietly, systematically call these folks together and outline something. The main thing is to develop a relationship. We closed over 300 crack houses, had the address and everything, because we had a hotline. So establish a hotline away from 474 tips or whatever your tips is in your community. Because in most cases, it's recorded. And when people hear that beeping sign, that's it. And we raised money. In May of 1977, we raised 30 grand. We had the Kansas City Chiefs. They started off with 10 grand. And we got it from the Royals, the baseball. And we got 30 grand. We set a hotline. It was answered 24/7. We got more information, substantive information, than the tips did. And the information, but that's because we had a relationship with the police department. And the community knew that. They knew that the information that they present is going to be presented to one of those agencies, either FBI or the ATF if it's a bombing, or FBI if it's drugs, the drug enforcement, and if it was just homicide, those kind of things, to the homicide unit or the violent crime unit of the police department. We had success. We had success because we were respected by all of those entities, and more importantly, the community that we represented. If you don't have that, you don't have anything. And you will have some naysayers out there. They're not doing anything. They're developing. We don't need the police in our community. Well, that's not like in the communities where you've got crime. We need police, but we need police who are civil towards us. And the Ad Hoc Group Against Crime held the police department accountable when there were people that came before the courts. And low bonds were set. And although we didn't have a lot of influence, but we also were there in the courtroom. And we'd already talked to the prosecutor. We'd already talked to the defense attorney. Listen, we don't care what you talk about. This crime is egregious enough that it ought to be. And we, in most cases, got it. If there was a case other and we wanted to go and I was able to get 3 people out of prison for being falsely accused, and because they were falsely accused. And the latest one just about 3 years ago. So I'm saying to you, it can work, but it takes a concentrated effort. It takes someone from the community to put all that together, to pull these forces together. And as I say, you're gonna have naysayers going to say, well, I'm Councilman so-and-so, I'm Mayor so-and-so, and I'm this and that, and I'm elected by the people. Yeah, but that doesn't always work when it comes to this kind of work. And you don't want folks who is I've because that's the only way I can explain it. You don't want people, I've done this and I've done that. You as person in the community, respect community, you know what that person has done. And are they able to bring all of those forces together? And more specifically, the community which is highest crime rate. We've had a surge of violent crimes. I left Ad Hoc Group Against Crime about 13 years ago. My predecessor, young man, bright young man, decided to take Ad Hoc a different direction. And that's okay. I'm not critical of it. But as the sister read, Ad Hoc was a grassroots organization. And we did prayer vigil. In 1993, the highest number of homicides we had was 153. I spoke at 41 funerals of murder victims. I got tired of looking down in the face of young black men in the casket and making comments. And also, at that same time frame of those homicides, in Kansas City, Missouri, you can predict that each year between 65 and 70% of the homicides are going to be black on black homicide. Some folks say, well, we don't want to talk about it, but it is what it is. If black folks killing black folks, what else is it? And so we then began we put out flyers where the police department furnished us with wanted suspects, not only black, but white, Hispanic, male, female. We put money under each one of those. If it was homicide, we said up. We didn't say, see, and it's interesting. The agencies that say arrest and conviction, that's crazy. Because if you say convict, the person will never get the money. Because it could be for 2 years, maybe the case is dismissed, and all this kind of thing. So we say with the arrest and if you arrest and charge, they got the money. And we paid out money each year, and we never ran out of money until now. Well, when I left, they don't do that anymore. So I'm sharing with you the role that I believe can take place in any community in America. And most communities in America do have an urban community. And most communities in America, the homicides, if it's sizable black and Hispanic population, are black on black and Hispanic on Hispanic. So I suggest to you, for God's sakes, be able to come up with the kind of leadership that's respected from all sides. That may be difficult. I know Kansas City, but it may be difficult. But and then people that say to you again, I'm elected or I'm the pastor, and I got so many in the congregation. I'm in the Baptist Ministry Union, and we've got so many churches members of that, and yes, AME, CME, Zions, and the Pentecostal, they're important, but we're the ones in control. That's a bigger lie than Chicken Little Joe. The truth of the matter is the community should be in control. I respect them, but I also have to be honest with them that the way you get something done is using common everyday folks who are honest, of integrity, tell the truth, even if it hurts, and say the same thing in one congregation that you say in the other, one audience you say the other. And I think if you do that, over time you will get respect from all those entities of the criminal justice system. And sometimes the judges, not one I left out, probation and parole, whether it's local probation parole or state probation parole. And one young man, and I'm going to close because I really want to, I hope I said enough to have somebody have some questions. A young man, you may never have heard the name Pete O'Neill. He was a Black Panther. And he's now in exile in East Africa, Tanzania. He is the cousin of the congressman who will be on Congressman Cleveland. And we are very angry at our brother, who was the president, Obama, that he did not pardon him because he was still on the 10 most wanted list. But his younger brother was picked up. Police surrounded the house because of this young brother, Neil. And he came out on the front porch with a carbine rifle. He was 17 years old. And at that time, in 17 years old, you considered to be an adult. Now it's 18. So they arrested him, had him in. He went before the court. He had a lawyer. And the probation parole people in the state of Missouri, the police department, and the Jackson and the prosecutor said this man was overthrow the government. That was his mission, all this kind of stuff. The judge called me. He said, Alvin, are you busy? And I said, Judge O'Leary, what's the deal? He said, you got a minute to come into my office. I want you to read something. He said, if I'm on the bench, my secretary, just tell her to give the O'Neill, the state of Missouri versus O'Neill file. So I go over there, and it took me about an hour to go through this whole stack of stuff. And so when he got off the bench, he said, what do you think? Well, all those other entities had said what they thought that I ought to be charged and all like that. But one of his attorney said he ought to be able, he's bright young man. He said, I'll be able to go to right outside of Chicago and live with his older sister and finish high school. So the judge said, Al, what do you think? I said, I think you ought to be on probation to go over there and finish high school, 2 or 3 year probation, at least to finish high school. He said, be in my courtroom at 2 o'clock this afternoon. He called the case O'Neill versus the state of Missouri, so-and-so, all that stuff that goes on. And he said, with the prosecution and the defense approached the bench. And before that, he asked all the letters to be read from the state probation bureau. Then he asked me to approach the bench. He said, Mr. Brooks, would you approach the bench also? He said, Mr. Brooks, you've heard the letters, you've heard, you've reviewed the file. He didn't even swear me in. He said, what is your recommendation? I said, my recommendation, Your Honor, is that O'Neal be allowed to go. So ordered. Everybody stood up. Now, I made a lot of enemies, but I saved a life. And the young man now thanks me. And all those 3 folks that I got out of prison. My last comment is that I was on the police department. And I hadn't finished my probation. I went on in 54. This was in May of 55. My probation was June. I was married 1 year. And I happened to be making a call at this particular home. And I looked at the Black Weekly paper, the Kansas City Call, started in 1915, Kansas City, Missouri. And I saw the headlines that this particular person was convicted of murder in the 2nd degree and was sentenced. Well, the call involved 2 ladies who were calling about some kids were on a roof playing. So I hollered at the kids, come on, young folks, don't run, no, don't this, that's okay. I don't want you to get hurt. This is Officer Brooks. Hi, Officer Brooks, okay. So just as I was leaving, I looked at this paper. And I said, oh, I went to court on that, so they finally came up to DC. Because I made the call where the person was supposed to be stabbed to death by this particular person. And the lady said, but he didn't do it. I said, he didn't do it? How do you know? She said, now let me back up. After I made the call, I was a district officer at that time. When I made the call, the fellow who was stabbed, he was in a fight. A fellow who was a friend of both of them, but had more relationship with one, when he separated them, stabbed the one fellow on his armpit. The fellow who was fighting that got stabbed accused the other man who was fighting him of stabbing him. And everybody sitting on the porch watching said, oh, so-and-so stabbed someone. But it wasn't true, the other fellow. But he left. The other fellow left. I called the ambulance, went to the hospital. I went to take a report in the emergency room. And let me take that back. I picked up the other fellow who was fighting with him and brought him to the emergency room. And the fellow on the gurney said, that's him, that's so-and-so. He stabbed me, Officer Brooks. He stabbed me. That night, they missed because of the small wound under his arm, and he bled to death in his sleep. So when that lady said that, it all came back to me. So I then, and I said, well, why did you know? She said, I just know because he told his wife what he did. I said, who is his wife? The other lady said, I'm his wife. I said, he told me. He told me. So I said, listen, can I come back? This was in the evening. I said, can I come back before I go to work tomorrow and talk to you? Yes. She said, but don't come by my house. Come right here. So I did. He told me the whole story. So I approached my sergeant. He said, lieutenant. I told him, lieutenant said, talk to the captain. So I told him about it. He said, seems like I remember that name, Brooks. He said, but go talk to Sergeant, the sergeant name, Lane, Kenny Lane. So I go, as soon as I walked in the office, apparently he had called Sergeant Lane and said, Brooks is on the way to talk about subject to case. As soon as I walked in, he reached in his desk and pulled out a stack of papers and said, you see these? And he cursed all the way. That's so. He said, officer, you know what a dying declaration is? I said, yes, sir. He said, well, is that the best? I said, dying declaration, one of the best, yes, Sergeant. He said, this is a dying declaration. SOB is he's guilty, and you need to leave that so-and-so alone. But that wasn't good enough for me. And I kept crying. So nobody else was there. So I was taking a law course, and the black assistant prosecutor taught the course. So I go to Mr. Spotfield. I said, Mr. Spotfield, I need to talk to you. I said, listen, here's the case. He said, I prosecuted that case, Brooks. He said, why not I call the public defender that was on the case? So next day or so, I met with both of them. I gave him the information. He said, let's go to the judge. They went to the judge. The judge said, Brooks, you got something here. So he called the man back from prison, had a retrial, and the man was out. And you think I was a hero in the police department? Because I got an innocent man out of jail, and I should have left him there. So my brothers and sisters, let me end with this. There's a dream in the land with his back against the wall. When muddled name and strain this dream is sometimes called, there are those that claim this dream for theirs alone, a sin for which we know they must atone. Unless this dream is shared in common and like common and like air, this dream would die for lack of substance anywhere. This dream, no frontier tongue, is no class, no race. But this dream cannot be held in any one locked place. But today, this dream is endowed with his back against the wall. But to save the dream for one, it must be saved for all. Langston Hughes, African American poet, 1964. And finally, the late Dr. Benjamin Mays of that great institution called Morehouse. I have 5 Morehouse men in my family. Dr. Mays wrote a 9-line poem that I think is so fitting, and I always try to end with it. And my daughters, when they're present, when I speak, they say, "Oh, here go Dad again." Everybody knows the poem. It's only 9 lines, but it's so profound. And it's called God's Minute. And you know, those of us of faith know that whose minute it is. It ain't ours. It's God's. It's the Alpha and Omega. And God and Dr. Mays said, only just a minute. Only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me. I didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it. I will suffer if I lose it. Give account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute. But eternity is in it. My brothers and my sisters, that's all life is. Each 60 seconds, you get a new lease on life. And the question becomes this. What will you do? What will I do? What will we do with the minute that we have? Peace.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Let me show you something. You see this right here, Mr. Brooks?
I
You
can't
see that?
see it. I can't
Well, I'm
see
gonna
it.
tell you what it says. I'm gonna tell you what it says. It says the ad hoc group against crime from one generation to the next. In 1991, I asked you to send me a tape because I want to start doing this work on the streets in Minnesota. You sent me this cassette tape. I've been on the streets. I did 1 million hours on the streets. I saved 359,000 families. I went to 600 homicides. I became the national president of Mad Dads
Yes, you
because
did.
you sent me this tape in 1991.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Yes, sir. And you never sent me the money, but that's all right. It wasn't any money, no charge to my brother, no charge. Thank you, PJ. Thank you. All right.
Wow.
I'm open.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brooks. I got excited. I didn't know whether to laugh or whether to cry, but I tell you, you brought it in. You woke up a lot of emotions. I heard you clearly say that it takes these entities to come together to work to bring about a change. My question to you is, how do you suggest getting the community involved?
Well, it's got to be someone, I don't know whether you have neighborhood organizations or whatever. It's got to be someone. Kansas City has 320 square miles. About 55 of those square miles represents the African American, Hispanic, and our newcomers, some whites, but our newcomers from south of the border. Venezuela, Mexico, half a dozen of those. So in that particular northeast part of Kansas City, has become it heavily, and of course we do have people from Africa, from the Sudan and other African nations, but mostly are African American, and that's where the majority of the crime is in that area. And so I'm saying that it should be take that area where the majority of the crime is. Is there anyone in that area, man or woman, who's respected enough that could call the first meeting of a group of people, and maybe leaving out all those other folk I'm talking about first? I'm talking about people living in the community. Say, here's a model that worked in Kansas City, Missouri, and let's see if it'll work here, and then present that. And the model is formulating that groundswell of support, and say, we need in this community better relationship with the police. When you have a better relationship with the police, where they trust you and you trust them, it's difficult. Kansas City went through this period because we had one chief who should never have been chief, and then his successor was one of his proteges, and it's a woman, first woman chief. a good person, wants to do the right thing, but she's got a little stigma because of her predecessor. But she's doing as much as she can. And then because she's small in stature, and then a woman, and she's about 5'6" or something, and Caucasian, and she's got some internal problems with her, some external problems, but she's doing the best she can in terms of meeting the needs of the various communities. I applaud her for that. She called me right about 6 weeks after she was appointed, sat down with me, and would I give her support with it? And I said, yes, as long as you do the right thing. But now if you do the wrong thing, I'm not going to call a news conference, but I'm meeting your office with you. I'm meeting someplace else, and we're going to talk about it. And she's done that. So I think, but the main thing is to bring folks together with common concerns. Because in African American communities in particular, as I say, I know quite a bit about the Hispanic community, and of course the white community, and I hadn't known about them to exist. So I'm just saying with you that you got to know who to call together, and then eventually move into ministers and civil rights leaders and politicians. Be very careful, because sometimes I was elected and I know what's going on.
Mhm.
And it's true. But can you call some folks together without and set your ego aside and say it's ours rather than mine? So I think that's what you have to do.
Yes, yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you. We're going to open up the gallery now for any questions or comments.
Not everybody's once now.
Questions, comments? Come on, Wayne. You always have a question or a comment. I know there's something brewing in your mind.
Oh, there is. You saw that look in my eyes.
Yes, I did.
I like the comments that I heard. There's a number of points that were made that resonate with me, and the fact that he recognizes that the problem is greater than any group, and that if you bring the groups together that have concern of overcoming the problem of crime and replacing it with neighborhoods of peace, then it will be done. The cooperation is key to it. It's absolutely essential, and it can be even framed and not just eliminating crime, but creating the kingdom of heaven on earth. We want a heavenly Kansas City, right? We want a place where we can love our people. We can work together, all races. And so this is a wonderful theme, a wonderful work that you're doing, and you're quite honest with it. You spoke about black on black murders. That's a reality. It can't be ignored. And you also spoke about police. We need to separate good from bad police. When police are behaving badly, they need to be called out on it and separated. So just simply defund the police or villainize the police, where you villainize everybody, is not right. But when you point out the bad behavior of a particular officer or a small group of them, that goes a long ways in cleaning up and allowing the good police to do their work better. So this is a couple of the comments that were brewing in my mind from hearing what you said, Mr. Brooks. So I wanted to offer that. So thank you for coming on and speaking very honestly with us. Thank you.
Well spoken. Well spoken. Mr. Brooks, do you want to address that?
I had a question.
Speak to that?
Oh, okay, good.
I just want to know if he wants to speak to that before we move forward, and then I'll get to you, VJ.
I think I think the person who is selected to call this meeting and follow through. Now, he or she may not be the one at the end. I happen to have been it because I, been it. But I had, and for God's sake, don't ever feel that Al Brooks did this by himself. We formed a group called Black Men Together, about 50 black men. We're the ones, and I was not the leader of that. When I was a convener. We never had a president or a chair. I was a convener. I worked out of City Hall. the police department, I had them to put a hotline in my office at City Hall, and when in the evening I transferred it to my home or to some of the other brothers. And it's always brothers because we wanted to make sure that brothers stepped up and be men, not grown-up boys, but men. And I think what lost my thought there for a minute. Um, mm, that's what you get for being 93 years old. See, every time I make a mistake, I say, chalk it up to age, chalk it up to age. But it'll come back to me. But help me, somebody, get me back on track. And if y'all can't get me on track, something wrong with y'all's age too. but
You were speaking to the brothers and how you have the brothers step up to the community.
Oh yes, yeah. And so what we did, the two fellows, both ex-offenders. One just passed away a couple years ago. One was Muslim, went to prison because he declared his religion, and they sent him to prison because of that. He was Muslim. The other brother was a robber out of St. Louis, but they both were volunteers. And we worked with the undercover police. Oh my God. You're talking about some crazy folks. We worked with undercover police, and we go, and so we had this hotline, and people would call in. I hope I'm getting at your question, but if not, it sounds good to me. And we had a hotline, and we said, people, call in the drug house in your neighborhood. Give us the address. If you know the people that live there, take some license numbers of cars. And so we made a list. And so we go around, we get with the undercover person. And that's what we did. We had the police department to come up with SNUs, Street Narcotics Unit, because of what we were doing. And we'd go outside, and we drive around in an unmarked van, this kind of thing. Folks come out and say, man, what's happening in there? I mean, got crack. Who are the folks in? Is that John? No, it's Frank. And this kind of thing. So on the next Saturday, we would compile that list, and we had what we call a drug house blitz, led by Calvin and Austin Bahayudin, Calvin Neal. Well, we went to police chief, Larry Joyner, police chief. I know Larry. I said, Larry, listen, we're getting ready to mark on some crack house. Al, you can't do that because Jamaicans and others, they're killing each other. I said, so we're not asking you to protect us. Just give us safe passage. Give us we don't have to stop at the stop sign lights. So give us somebody that we can have about 25 or 30 cars in a caravan. Some will have women and children in. I said, but we know where the crack house is. William Sherman made sign. We had from our local mortuary. We had a casket. So we put this casket up in front of the house. And the kids had written signs all over the side of the casket and everything. We want drugs out of it. It's just, so what happened? Two of us would go up and knock on the door. And here you got black men out there and children, women and children in the street. We didn't let the women and children go to the door, but we knew the address. We'd go out there. Most times they'd answer the door. And we said, you see us out here? The day is Saturday, the such and such day. Next Saturday, you need to be gone. And we just want you to know that. We want you to know that. And in every case we did, the folks got out. We ran them out. And one case, I never forget, we had Saturday, Calvin was a 6'7", close to 300 pounds. Pretty good sized fellow. And I always made the joke then, and Bahayudin was much shorter but wide. I said, anytime we went to a house like that, I stood sideways so that if it started shooting, it wouldn't hit me. We had that joke going on. But one Saturday, we were marching, and this fellow was a crack house dealer. He came to us, he cussed us, especially me, because my name appeared on the news, and although I tried to spread it around, folks said, no, Brooks, you do the media, you do the media. So he was cussing me, so Calvin went up to the fence. And I'm not going to tell you what Calvin told him, but he went back in there. Now that Monday, the neighborhood organization invited me to speak. As soon as I walked in the church, there's 75, 80 people, they started applauding. Well, that was okay. Said, Mr. Brooks said, we're glad ad hoc burned down the house. I said, what are you talking? We don't burn down. Somebody set it wasn't us, but somebody set the house on fire. We got credit for it, but we didn't want credit for it. But I think that kind of relationship you have to do, you have to develop that kind of relationship, my brothers and my sisters, in our communities, if you want to bring about change. And there, a little anecdote. There was a fellow going around grabbing young girls and sodomizing and raping them. The last time I got a call from the police, said, Al Brooks, we just had a 6-year-old picked up at, I'm gonna name some streets. If you're not careful, you will know. I need to say this. 26 in Chestnut. She was walking to school with her brother, and he jumped out of the car and snatched her, put in the car, and drove away. The brother said it was this kind of car. That's all he knew, and it was his sister's name. So they said we're staging at 21st and Prospect in the park. So I called the black radio station, KPRS, and I said, listen, I need to go live. I'm getting ready to go down to the park. I said, and I told them what happened. No other media had picked this up yet. So I'm down there, and they gave me the description of the car and the child's name. And I got on there driving around the city of Kansas City in my car, broadcasting. This fella, I want to call him a bunch of names that I called him while I was driving, but I wanted to because it's a mixed company. But he had KPRS on. And I kept calling her name, and he had driven into Kansas. And she said, he's calling my name. He's calling. So he put out the car at 10th and State in Kansas City, Kansas. And somebody picked her up because it was all over the news now. Went to court. I testified. The judge was a magistrate judge, federal magistrate judge, we'd worked with as he was an assistant U.S. attorney, and he was assigned to all those drug cases that involved not only people from Jamaica but other local black men. Because when the Jamaicans when they went to prison or they went back to Kingston or someplace, black men took their place because we left a lot of drug addicts behind. But I went to court and I testified. And do you know, several months after that, his mother, who was evangelist, wrote me all kind of nasty letters, but she was in court. He pleaded guilty. Mm. They showed the vaginal area of this baby on the screen. And the judge said, the prosecutor said, call him by name. Are you responsible for that? Yes. Are you responsible? And his mama sat right across the road, and his sister, and she told me that you're going to watch digging graves of somebody, or you may fall. I wanted to say something to that sister, but God talked to God, and a few other responsible people decided not to. So I just share with you, when you develop those kind of relationships, I'm just one individual. All those folk that was in ad hoc were just individuals. And we were a volunteer organization from 1977 to 1988 when we got some funds, and I didn't get any money for the first 4 or 5 years. And let me share this, back up. You know, George H.W. Bush appointed me to a 3-year term on the President Drug Advisory Council. We invited him and the Committee on Crime and Violence. And he came to Kansas City, and when it was 31 of us, and it was a lot of Republicans and Democrats and wealthy folks and me. And he was bragging about me at this dinner where just before we were sworn in. And he said, "Oh, you got anything to say?" Well, I said, "Mr. President, let me make it very clear. I know why you appointed me, because you ran out of black Republicans. And I think so. I wanted you all to know that I said that." And it made news. It was serious. Anyway, I hope my brother William Stoner, that I've touched upon what you. It was it was Brother Hawkins. Somebody, Brother Hankins.
Yeah.
Somebody
Wayne Hawkins. Yes.
Yes. Somebody else had some questions, I think, before I went into my tirade.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you. VJ, we have a few more minutes, but we have about 10 minutes. I want Mr. Brooks to be able to have the last word. So if you could come on and be brief, and then we'll go to Brother Daryl, and then we'll go to Brother Matthew, just to make sure everybody has, the input that's needed.
Sounds good. Brother Brooks, the question I have is, when I started my organization, I went to you as an elder to learn more, and I got a lot of wisdom. What I'm finding out is our next generation, they tend to not want to look at our elders and do it on their own, and they're making a lot of mistakes. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, Brother VJ, because what we did, we organized young people, and we took young people to the 3 prisons. One is the state capital, and 2 just an hour from us, up in north of us, and all of them had inmates to talk to these kids, and then we also, with young people, and the gangs were killing each other. we had that one of those caskets, and we put a mirror in that casket, and we did a seminar, and then let them when they scream when they see themselves in that casket, in that mirror. And it was not a scared straight kind of a thing, but we had activity. We went bowling, we went swimming, we went down to the Ozark where they had the plays and all that. We took kids around. We had skating contests. We had dancing contests with young people. None of them were ever now they little brother this always up to shooting some craps. But we broke that down there. But in terms of violence, in terms of number of people, we didn't have it because we had volunteer adults, and we said we want you as parents or guardians or significant adult others to also come to these events. And so you got to involve young people in, because otherwise they're going to say, and see, we really don't. People say, well, you got to ask young people what they want. They don't know what they want. They don't know. Our mayor, who's now the congressman, went and built this whole thing out of Swope Park for kids to drive their beautiful cars and everything, and show off on Sundays afternoon. What they do, they go at the BP station or the Sequoia of the American and drive around in what they call donut. And so they really, I think you have to work with them to do the kind of things to draw them in and get their support, because they're the first ones to say, I ain't no snitch. But when you got that hotline right, folks will call in.
Yes, thank you so much. Brother Franklin, make it brief so we can make sure Brother Goldberg has his say as well.
Thank you so much, Alexander. And thank you so much, Mr. Brooks. I am so impressed with your life story and all the things in which you have done. And please pardon me for getting on a little bit late. I missed so much. I'm going to have to see it again, sir, and everyone. But who were your role models? And what gave you the power and the ability to be able to stay committed to the truth in the midst of getting persecuted, or in the midst of somebody disrespecting you, but having the resolve to stay firm in your convictions? Sir, where did that come from in your life, and who were your role models?
My brother, I was born May 3rd, 1932 in North Little Rock, Arkansas, Pulaski County, in the home of Cluster and Estelle Brooks. My mother was Thomasine Gilder, 14 years old. My father was Wilbur Moore Heron, 17. My dad didn't know he had gotten Thomasine Gilder pregnant. She was in Miami, and her aunt sent her to North Little Rock, Arkansas to live with an elder sister. And the Brookses adopted me. I didn't know I was adopted until I was 22 years old, when my biological mother wrote to the school board, and thank God for segregation. I was able to send it, and the address was the same when I was in the old black school. I'm pre-1950, Brown versus Board of Education, 1954. And for some strange reason, and I became a teenage parent, 18 and 15. If my wife is here, God bless her soul, I'd say she went and got pregnant. But I used to say that to make her curse, because she could use some words even in church, and we were both churchgoers. But I say that just as and so, Carol, I'm saying it, baby, and you know what I mean. But we were married for 63 years, my brothers and my sisters, and our theme song was Nat King Cole's "Too Young." Play that on Google it, because the last thing he said, he found out we were not too young at all. If she had been living last August the 23rd, 2014, would have been 73 years. There are almost 80 descendants of ours. I had a family reunion here that I had to underwrite, and we ain't gonna have no more, last June, all except the family that had two full sickle cell kids couldn't come. But as I looked at that, I thank God, my brother. Now I'm getting at the answer. God is, even when I didn't know God was there, God was there. Who would have been able to do the kind of things that I've done? Please, when I say I got to tell you, I've been across the world and never been to service. I've been to Africa on a fact-finding trip to Mali, Senegal, and the Gambia. I went to Southeast Asia to Singapore and Malaysia on drugs, checking out how they deal with drugs. Went to the Mideast, to Israel, and then to Egypt, Jordan, and got into Syria on a false passport and still here. Went to Rome. None of my expenses. And I tell this on you, Carol. My wife somehow got pregnant in Israel. I think it was a second immaculate conception. That's the baby girl that I was in last week. So all I'm saying is God's been good to me.
Amen.
God's been good to me.
Mm.
God's been good to
Amen.
me. Every
Amen.
day, every day. Yeah, I wrote a book, Bind Us Together. You may not be able to get a copy because we've had 10,000 copies printed from Schuster, Simon and Schuster, but my daughter put a hold on about 200 or 300 of them. But if you want a copy, you can text me. They're $3, and I'll pay for the postage because we started a fund. And you may have heard of Wilmot, Kevin Wilmot, the Academy Award winner with Spike Lee, Chirac, and Black Klansman. He's one of the reviewers on my book, and he said, "Mr. Brooks, I'd like to do a documentary." He did, and it's called "The Heroic True Life Adventures of Alvin Brooks."
Wow.
And it's a film. It's been shown on PBS.
Really?
And we started, my girls and I have 5 beautiful daughters, and we started a fund, the Alvin and Carol Brooks Bind Us Together Fund, under the larger group. And so we're trying to raise funds for a couple of reasons. One, my wife's life was childhood development education, and the other was we want kids who are interested in writing and directing plays and stuff like that to follow Wilmot. Don't please, God I'm 93 years old. I have cancer now, but I'm going to die for something, but it won't be from cancer.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
We stand in agreement with you.
Wow.
Mr. Goldberg, if you could unmute yourself, and Mr. Brooks, if you would close us out with that God's Minute poem. Once you and Mr. Goldberg have your
Okay, all right.
dialogue, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Mr. Goldberg, good afternoon, sir.
Uh-oh.
You hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to thank you very much for being such a great representative of God's kingdom.
Thank you.
I look up to you. You got me in age by about 20 years.
Oh, okay.
And I
Keep
hope
on
I can
living.
be-
I'm not going to let you catch me, though.
I hope I can be halfway as great as you are in the next 5 or 10. But I did a quick look up and found that poem was by Dr. Benjamin E. Mays, who did a eulogy, one of the eulogies from Martin Luther King Jr. But and I hope you'll share that poem again. I guess Sister Alexandra is going to have you do that. I just want to thank you for the ideas, because you're a source of information. And it just happens, it's timely, it's God's timing, that I'm working with someone who's trying to develop a community and use a failing church and see if we can turn it into a successful church by serving the community. So what you've said has so much meat in it. What I picked up that I really like is prayer vigils. I think everything must start with prayer, and I see that that's how you've lived your life. And building mutual respect between the community and the police. I think that's so important. I started trying to do this kind of work when I was in a fraternity at the south side of University of Chicago in 1968, and I failed miserably because I didn't know God at the time, and I didn't know any of these principles. But the desire to help people never left me. And when God got a hold of me, it became a reality. And to me, you're just an example of where we all should be headed. So I want to thank you and your wife, your late wife, Carol, who's obviously still with you. This
yes.
is eternal life. And
We
she's
talk every day. We
she's
talk
along for the
every day.
ride, along with your wild sense of humor. So I just want to thank you for being who you are and sharing with us. I normally don't come on calls like this and stay on them,
Yes, sir.
but you got me.
Thank you, sir. 3717 Southern Hills Drive, Kansas City, Missouri,
I learned a lot.
64137 is my house, but Carol's home.
Oh,
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
beautiful.
Dr. Benjamin Mays, listen, thank you so much, my dear sister, Dr. Clark Alexander and Brother VJ. Thank you so much for each one of you, my brothers and my sisters, for allowing me to share this moment with you and allowing God to come into our midst. And God, you are here right
Yes.
now. You're
Yes.
here. I can sense your presence.
Yes.
God, let others feel that wherever their faith might be. Let them feel your presence. Whoever they serve that's greater than themselves, let it be. I've only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. It was forced upon me. I didn't seek it, didn't choose it. But it's up to me to use it. I will suffer if I lose it. Give account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. And my brother and my sister, remember that. Each 60 seconds, you get a new lease on life. Charge yourself for loving yourself and others and trying to be a role model as well as a role modeler for our young folks, or the folks that have not met the Creator along the way. Love you. God bless you. God keep you.
Amen. God bless you. Thank you so much, Mr. Brooks. You know, we have to have you on again.
Please.
Hallelujah. You've been a blessing. You've
Please,
given
please.
us wisdom to move forward. You put a framework around the work that we're actually doing, and you have encouraged us to continue to move forward. So I thank everyone for being on the line today. Andrea, I know that you're always in the background. Thank you so much for your comments. So we thank you all. And until we meet again, God bless you.
Thank
Bless
you.
you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Dr.
Mr. Brooks.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
welcome. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
You've been a
Yes.
strategic planner from the very beginning, and
Thank
you
you.
showed
Thank you
us how
so
to
much.
connect some of the dots. Thank you so much. It's greatly
Thank you.
appreciated.
Blessings.
Awesome.
Peace.
Blessings.
Thank you, Mr.
Peace and
Brooks.
Thank you,
blessings
everybody.
until
Thank you,
we
Mr.
meet-
Brooks.
Until we meet again.
Blessings to you.
next week.
Yes, thank you.
God
Keep me
bless.
in your prayers. Keep me in your prayers.
Absolutely.
Keep me.
We will.
Yes.
Wonderful. Wonderful to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mm.
So it's a success.